Bonhoff Lumber, getting more wood. So this was a 16-foot long 12-quarter, which means in the rough it's about 3 inches high. And what I'm doing here, as you guys know by now, is I will rip this like this. And then I'll lay these flat, and these will be my rails and stiles because I'll have vertical grain. And that's what's going to remain stable. More than enough here. And this board was about $200, well, $180 with tax. Okay, now I got to drive through LA and the freeway and get back to the shop. Be good to one another. Have a good day. All right, so I shot video at Bonhoff Lumber, but I touched my finger to the screen and I shut the video off. I got back and I just realized that. I'm going to show you how I do this real quick, but I just unloaded this from the roof up here, and these are what you call 12-quarter, which means they are approximately 3 inches tall, and this is what you would call in the rough. All right, so that means they're rough. If you were to touch it, it's like fuzzy. And these marks here from what I was trying to show you on top of the van earlier that I shut off. So up here, you can kind of see it, I suppose, on screen here. You can see the pattern of the grain, right? If you were to follow these lines, and it's like a knot here, and it gives you the pattern of the grain, right? And then on the edge, we could barely see here, but you can see these straight lines. That's vertical grain, right? So if you look at the end here, as I kill more mosquitoes. By the way, look at me. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt. I'm wearing some trousers here. That's because of the mosquitoes. The mosquito situation here is so bad that if I wear shorts and short sleeves, I can't work. It's too distracting. I'm getting eaten alive, so that's why I do that. So I have to sweat for my art here. Anyhow, what'll happen is these will get ripped down to like 1.5 inches or something, approximately. Do it on a table saw. I might even do all this on video for you. But before I even do that, I have to cut them to length. I rough cut them over here on the sliding compound miter saw. I made a mistake. These are my notes for this built-in project. And for some kooky reason, I was going to make these lower doors 81 inches tall with like a 17-inch tall door up here. All right? Which is just stupid. Because you can't even reach them. So now I've changed my design. Yesterday I brought the story stick over, and this is it here. So now my doors are, they're only going to be about 6 feet tall, so that, just stand this up for you here, bear with me. So here's your cabinet, and now the top of the door is right here, which I'm standing here, I could reach that. So your upper cabinets are here, so I'll be able to have a knob right here that you can grab and open the door. So that makes much more sense. However, that makes these now, now let's do the whole thing for you. Welcome aboard. That's going to make these doors then approximately 25 inches tall. All right. So what I've got to do is I'm going to cut these in probably 30-inch lengths or whatever. I'll get 3 parts, and I only really need one of these, and it'll probably be this one. It has a knot down here. So we'll see how this all works out, but that would be, Let me see what the math is. Let's see what we can get out of this. Let's guesstimate our net. So 2, 4, theoretically I can get 6 rips out of this and still have enough room to make them all about an inch thick. Now, these are our style parts here that I milled 2.5 months ago. They've been sitting here. And you can see it's all vertical grain. See how nice that looks. Now these are going to be fine for the width of all my doors. And a couple of these I've got to glue together to make them a little bit wider for the bottoms. But they're all too short now for those upper cabinets for the height of those doors. That's why I need this to make them. But all of these right now are milled to just over an inch thick. I can run these through the thickness planer one more time. The thing about this is, here's all my, panel lengths and lower door lengths all sitting here. You don't want to do what I'm doing right now. You want to have all your stuff cut properly to the correct lengths and do the milling process all at the same time so that all your parts end up perfectly stable and all exactly the same thickness. So when you do your mortise and tenon joints and everything and you glue everything together, there's no sanding involved other than a finish sand. All right? If you're putting doors together or anything, tabletop glue up, and your boards are different thicknesses, and you're spending hours and hours and hours sanding to make that flat, you're doing it wrong. You heard it here first. It's not how you do things. You make everything the same and stable first, and then when you glue them up, it's pretty much perfect already. So that's what I'm going to go through next on this. Now in the past, by the way, an inch is overkill. All right, 3/4 of an inch is standard for your face frames and your doors. That's what you see. I usually go at about 7/8. I just like things to be beefier, and they do make hinges that will work with 7/8 thick material, 7/8 to an inch thick, and that's just what I do. It's more robust, more heavy duty, just like everything else in my life. I make everything more heavy duty, from the vehicles I drive to the bikes I pedal. To the watches I wear, you know what I'm saying? Like, everything in my life is heavy duty. You know why? Because in my life, I break things. So I have to have tough stuff. I have to have tough stuff. And when I build things for people, I make it tough. I used to say to people, a lot of my furniture is pretty chunky. Even if I do the visual tricks to make things lighter and look like tops are floating off the leg assemblies and all that, they are built so well that if there was an earthquake and you can't get out of that house, roll over, lay down next to a piece of furniture that I built. That whole house could collapse down upon you and you will be in a safety zone because that piece of furniture is not going to collapse on you. And it could literally save your life. You might be stuck under. Maybe if you have a piece of furniture I've built for you, maybe what I should do is with all of them is have like a little area where you can put a bottle of water and some food or something, because you could be down there for days before somebody digs you out. Let's continue with what we're doing here. How's that? All right, so order of operation is cutting your rough lengths first. And the reason why you want to do that is because over the length of this board here, it's got a twist to it, it's got a cup to it, and everything else. So if you were to take this board and do your rips first, those 8-foot long strips, they're going to get squirrely on you, and they're going to be harder to manipulate. So and also the stored energy in there is crazy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do a couple quick tests here. 30, 60, and I'm going to have 96, right? So I have 6 extra inches on this end, which I do. But that's good because on the ends, they're usually checked, right? And I cut it in the middle originally. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark this at 90. And I'm going to cut proud of the line on each one of these and see where we're at. I like to use my hearing protection on this. I got this tinnitus issue. You can see here, it's lifted. There's a gap here. You might see the shadow line. So when I cut this board's going to fall. When it falls, it's going to want to bind the blade. So when I'm cutting it, I kind of lift up on this one side to keep that from happening. These don't have to be exact. I dropped it. I'm going to cut the end off of this too, but I'm going to cut the other two in half first. You can see how chunky this is. These boards are pretty heavy. So one of the reasons why I have to work out is because I'm constantly using my body. Same thing here, I held that up. So you can see how that moves? That board's got a twist to it. This section is pretty stable, doesn't have a twist to it, so that's a nice thing. If I'm yelling, it's because I'm wearing these things. What I'm going to do is, my next step is I'm going to go to the table saw and rip these wider than they need to be, see how many rips I can get out of it. And if I can already net what I need for this project, I'm not going to cut the other board right now. I'm going to save it for later for anything else I need, probably for this project. That stayed together, which means it didn't have a check on that end. I know the other board has a long check in the end. That's why I wanted to use this piece. All right, next step, we're going to square up one edge on the table saw, because you can see these are at a square. So we'll rip that on the table saw, then we'll turn it around. We'll have that nice straight square edge, and we'll do our rips. You look down here, you'll see there's a dust collection. I got to hook that hose up to the end of the table saw there, and then I have to plug it in up here to turn it on because the switch is busted. So I'll do that. You'll see me turn the machine on before I turn the table saw on. Alright, so if this is wonky, you know, you might want to use the other side. I've been doing this long enough, I can kind of correct for it. It doesn't matter, because in the end it's going to get face joined on the joiner and planer, and I'll show you all that. Again, an apron comes in handy for what you're about to see. I designed this apron, so I've got these two pockets that are slash pockets, so when the sawdust comes back at me, these pockets do not fill with dust like they would on like a regular store-bought apron. Headphones are here. This cord is if I want to listen to my iPod while I'm working, which fits in this pocket here. When you do your blade, you want to do it so that blade comes just proud of your height. Of course here we're going to have a hard time because this is about the maximum of my blade height. So I might have to do a double pass on it. Typically I would not shut the machine off between cuts, but I want to save something. See this little lip here hanging over, just go ahead and knock that off. That's fine. Makes your life a little bit easier. Spin the board around. Your next pass with that will go up against the fence. back to you. Alright. I've set the rip fence to 1 5/16", and I'm doing that. That's 5/16 of an inch at least thicker than it needs to be to allow for twisting and whatnot that may happen as I start ripping these things. The next step will be running them on the joiner to face joint them and edge one side. I'll show you all that. And then we go to the bandsaw and we face join them, or not face join them, but thickness cut them. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now. And then we let it sit overnight. That might be a little boring for a lot of you, but I netted 4, 5, 6 pieces out of that. So that tells me I've got 18 parts, but actually you can see the corner of this board isn't in very good shape. So I'll get 17 pieces of that out of that, and I only need 14. But the beauty of that is that's 3 extra parts that are that long. So when I start doing my woodworking, like, because this is, I don't consider this woodworking, this is just wood milling. When I get to the point where these are milled correct and they're ready for me to do the tongue and groove, not the tongue and groove, but the grooves for the panels, but also the mortise and tenons, I've got extra parts. So I can play with the machine when I do my setup for the joinery. So I have practice pieces. So it's always nice when you're milling your parts for a project like this, always mill extra parts. So when you do your tool setups and everything for all your joinery, you've got pieces you practice with first, make sure you got it perfect, everything's set right, and then you can run them right through. So it's just, you know, another thing to think about. I'll get on with the next step here in a moment. All right, what you're seeing here, this is an Inca jointer and planer. This is a Tersa head cutter. There's 3 blades, they're double-sided. They're held in place with little wedge blocks that hold the blade in place with centrifugal force. If I want to change the blade, I have to tap those down and then the blades will slide out. I've got to always set this fence to 90, at least double check it before I start. And I'll explain what I'm about to do here. The planer and the joiner are both about 10 1/8 inches wide. That's good. So that means I can face joint a board up to 10 1/8 inch wide. That's a big deal. Most joiners that you buy, the maximum you see is 8 inches, and what you mostly see in people's garages is maybe a 6 inch. Also, just a quick tip on this. When you sight these and you run them through the machine, most guys are going to tell you that you need to have it, like if it's curved at all, they'll tell you you want the curve up. So that your long point hits, you drag it through, the other point hits. Now, technically that's true, but it doesn't need to be. If you know what you're doing and you sight it and it's going the opposite direction and you have to do it that way, sometimes this is the face that you need, and the other side there's some void that you don't want to deal with that can be hidden, right? Well, then what you would do is you would kind of lay it on here and start from this point and then hold it in the center and let the blades just remove that until it's relatively flat and you can start running it through. So just sight the board every single time and then you'll know what you're doing. I'm going to do that here, and I'm not going to show you all of these obviously, because on this piece here that's hanging off on all these boards, I'm leaving that for now. I'm going to face joint this. I'm going to edge joint the other side regardless of which way the hump's going, if there is one. And then I take it over here to the bandsaw and I resaw it, that was the term I was looking for earlier, to the point where it's over 1 inch thick. Alright? And then I'm going to let that sit overnight. I'll show you what this looks like. You want to use the touch of your fingertips and run this on here and figure out which way is smoother. That's smoother, so I'm going to run the board in this direction. Here's a little trick for you. Now right here, because it's pretty light, I don't know if you can see it, but it's smooth here. You can see the saw marks here. A little tip for you, I usually do this. Not always on the first couple passes like this because it's obvious I can see what's going on. It's perfect. Trick here, you can see on this that the grain is lifting this way. So typically you would want to run it in this direction, but because this is the side that's flat, I can't do that. It's okay for now. This is not going to be the final finished edge. Getting there. It's perfect. You're going to take your square and double check. I can see I'm a little off here. I don't know if I'll be able to show that to you on camera, but there's a slight bit of light in here. I can't see what you see. Tell me I need to push tighter here. If it doesn't relieve this time, then I have to adjust this fence again. I was pushing so tight that the wood hit the skin on my finger and lifted itself up off the table. So you have to be careful about that. that's perfect. You've got no light coming in there now. So that's what you want. I was tested on the long side as well. If this is perfect, you just can't get better than that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mill up all these the same way. And then I'll show you the next step on the bandsaw. Alright, so the mic spun around, I apologize, but you can see here what's going on. You know what, I'll give you a quick test here. Hang on a second. So right now it doesn't matter so much. This is the preliminary milling. But if you want to test your joiner for straight, you take the two edges that you planed or joined, you put them together and you hold them up so you look towards the light, and if you don't see light coming through that seam, you know that's straight. Here's the straight edge here, and I'll put it here, same thing that way. Okay? No light coming through there. Same thing this way. No light coming through there. That's how I know it's straight. If there's light on one end or it's humped or something, then the table is out on your machine. Okay, so the reason why you do this right here and you get 90 degrees is because the next step is to take this board over here to the bandsaw. I've already set this up for about a little less than 1 1/16", and I'm going to run it through like this. And I'm going to use a little tool to hold it in place so it's flush to the fence, so that both faces then will be parallel to one another, and it'll give me an even thickness here. And then, as I was saying, I'll let that sit overnight, and it'll acclimate. And then tomorrow morning, I'll probably come back, put the lines on the side I face joined, run it through the planer again, or the joiner rather. Then I'll set this machine up as a planer, and then I'll thickness planer. And, you know, I'll probably do that and then compare it to the other material I have. And if I can't get it right, I'm going to have to run all of those and all of these and all of that through the planer again to remove a little bit more material so that they're all exactly the same. And if I haven't mentioned it yet in the video, the reason I do this, you know, milling 12/4 in this fashion, is so that we end up with this vertical grain, because this right here is what's going to give you your most stable doors. All right. You'll notice tomorrow, I don't think I'm going to do another video on it, but what I noticed when I was milling this months ago, it's something I've done for years by the way, is when you mill this material like this and you've got nice vertical grain here, it almost never moves anyhow. You might get a slight cup, a very slight twist, very rare, but after you do that and you let it sit overnight and then you face joint it the next day, and then when you run it through the planer, it almost never moves again. It's very, very, very rare for that to move again. Which will tell you why you want to use this on cabinet doors. Especially with this, because I'm going to have 4 6-foot tall doors that are only going to be like around 13 inches wide. Something like that. So, I'm jamming out to Dramarama right now. Some of you may or may not know, I know those guys. One of my best friends in the world grew up with them. He was the original bass player for them. So I know John Easdale and Marky Boy and all that. So that's what I was just listening to that. Anyhow, I'm going to do the bandsaw. I'll show you at least one pass with that so you see what's going on. And then we'll take it from there. Exactly perfect. All right, hang on a second. All right, so I stack all the boards to the one side of the fence because the next step is to straight line them here. And when I place these, I orient them all correct so that, you know, the milled side is down and the joined side is here. So all I have to do is pick it up, lay it next to the fence, and go. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to eyeball each and every one of them. And I'm going to go ahead and rip these to probably about 2 5/8 of an inch. They're all about a little over 3 inches now, some of them, but close to 3 inches because I haven't made a determination yet. The panels, right, the front edges that the doors sit in, the face frames I'll be making, that's going to be 2.5 inches. I was considering making the rails and stiles 2.5 inches. The bottom style on the doors can be as tall as 9 inches on these tall doors, and the upper doors I might make those 3 inches tall. I haven't made a determination on that either. I'm considering making the rails on the doors 2 1/4 inches wide. So I got to play with that in my mind yet. But I'm going to go ahead and preliminarily rip these now because it'll release more energy. And then tomorrow, if they're going to move, I'll see it tomorrow. And then tomorrow, like I said, I'll face join them again and then thickness plane them. And then I'll start making my parts. All right, then it becomes actually woodworking. Today, before I get out of here, I've got to pull all this out, lay it all out, determine which pieces are going to be the verticals on my panels, and I have to add material to some of them. I have to glue some of these together to deal with, give myself enough extra material with notes so I could scribe those walls so they all fit tight when I'm building the cabinets into place. It's a lot of work. It's like I said, it's weeks of doing this stuff. Getting all these parts made is one thing, and this is just the outside. I've still got to make all the interior shelving. They're going to be hardwood like this, with a rabbet on the top that like a piece of plywood will sit in. So the front edge will be a nice thick piece of wood and won't sag. And but there's a lot. I'm building puzzle pieces that have to fit together in place, and in the end, everything has to be plumb, right, and square. Even though what I'm building to is not. And then as I make the parts and I know that everything's going to work okay, I have to pre-prime everything here. And after it's all installed, then what I do is I end up painting it. And again, everything is hand painted because it's the only way to get that look. You actually, one of the things, it's funny, it's a pet peeve of mine. I know that this is common these days and people are paying for it. If you've got the money and you're hiring a company to come in, and even if they can do something similar to what I'm doing, right, with inset doors and flat panels and all that. A couple things I do that most companies don't. One is I use real mortise and tenon on my joinery. Most guys making cabinet doors, they're going to do a groove for the panel, and then they're going to make a little tongue, and that's all that's going to be that joins the frame pieces together with the glue, which is pretty good. It's pretty strong, especially with modern hardware. I'm going to put an inch of a mortise and tenon into all the rails and stiles at the corner and inset the panel. The other thing that a lot of people will do is they're going to spray finish everything, which it's a very clean look, it's very efficient, it's very fast, but it almost looks like plastic when it's done, and that might be the look you want. It's just, I'm not trying to talk it down, okay? But that's very, when you go into a home that's an old home, and if that's what it looks like, it's just perfect, that perfect. It looks fake, and I realize I'm talking as the mic is spun around. I'm sorry, hang on a second. I keep forgetting that. I got to turn the mic around when I'm looking at the camera. I got to turn the mic around when I'm behind the camera. Blah, 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 blah. So if you want something to look correct to match what's existing in the house already, if everything else hasn't been ripped out, you need a hand brush finish. The only way to get a hand brush finished is to hand brush it. So, and that when you walk in and you see that, it's got to be done well. You see that nice straight line where it's blended perfect, so it just looks like faint. It catches the light just right, and it gives you the vibe of, you know, you could be in a time capsule and go back in time, and it's 100 years ago, and this is new. That's what my clients pay me for. That's why it looks so cool. So it's just a me thing. I think this is going to do it for this video. I don't need to do anything else. You don't need to see me rip these down. It's straightforward stuff. And like I said, I'll come back here tomorrow and keep working on this. But this is really just about why and how I mill 12-quarter material for cabinet door rails and stiles. All right? I am not telling you to do what I do. I'm not telling you to do what I do the way I do it. I'm showing you the way I do it. That's all. All right? These guys have been doing this as long. I've been doing this for 37, 38 years or something like that. So, you know, there's guys out there that are doing great work, and they might do it differently than me, and they might have a different opinion, and that's fine. I'm not going to argue with anybody. This is what I do. It's how I do it, and it works for me. Some of you might get something out of this. I don't know. But as you know, I do a lot of this for my clients, right? So they know what's happening. So that's it for now. Have a good day. Be good to one another. And, you know, hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.